Hello everyone and welcome back to some more Warhammer Underworlds coverage for the channel, and I should start this by pointing out that it is being filmed before the previous video has gone live, so haven't had a chance to see any comments about anything that may have been done incorrectly. Hopefully there wasn't anything egregiously bad, just like, little things that you can forget in the moment. Double check some stuff with some friends who are much more familiar with the game. Most things seem okay, but just pointing that out. It's not gone live yet. This is a nice quick game to record, so doing some more to fit it in the same week. And once again, the Farstriders are going to be taking to the table from the new, revamped 2-player starter set. And this time we're going up against the new release that came out alongside the starter set, which is called the Headsmen's Curse. And they have some special mechanics that we'll talk about in a second. So just as a matter of note, here are the Farstriders being led by Sanson Farstrider himself, the one in the middle with the bird. To his right, camera left, we have Elias Swiftblade, who's kind of pointing their bolt gun off to the side there. And then on the far right, the left of Farstrider, we have Ulmeric Eagle Eye with his axe. And once again, using the Rivals decks for both sides. So curated by Games Workshop, no customization, it's just what they come stock as you get them. And here we have the Headsmen's Curse, really fun miniatures, really great looking. I love their design. Their leader is the wielder of the blade, which is the large based one in your middle of the camera, who's kind of pulling the executioner sword out of the ground. So he's the boss. On his left, camera right, with the page, we have the scripter of the sentence. Then to the other side, the little one in front, he's the weakest one in the group. He's called the sharpener of the blade. He's there for buffing mostly. And behind him is the bearer of the block. Most of them, besides the sharpener, are tanky. The boss has 5 health, the scripter has 3, the block has 4, but then the sharpener only has 2. There is some mechanics that can bring them back, and as I mentioned, I think in the top of the video, they do have what's called a special ploy, which is just instructions. They hand out, what are they called? Condemned counters, both to the enemy and to themselves. They can obtain them, they want to hold on to them, and they can inspire if you have a 3 on your side of things, and it helps score their cards. So they want to condemn someone to death, take them out, get the condemned token from them, and if it happened to be someone who's 5 or more health, which won't be applicable here, you would get an extra one, and if the attack action was supported, you would get an extra one. So they want to team up on people and pick on one person, say, "Hoi, you've made my list of things to do today," gang up on them, kill them, and reap the benefits, ironically. So, not fully set up yet. The boards are how they're going to be, but we're going to do some rolling off, get everything set up, and be back at deployment. So that's both sides deployed, and we are ready to get the game started. All that is remaining to do is to flip over the objective tokens to see what is where. But just quickly, so Farstrider himself is here, Swiftblade is there, I think it's probably the Elias, right? It's probably not Elias, but either way, there's there, and that's Ulmeric Eagle Eye up there. Then at the top of the board, for the other half, for the Headsmen's Curse, got the bearer of the block up there, the scripter is the next from top to bottom, then we have the wielder next to the sharpener, because the sharpener can give either himself or the wielder a buff. So, we'll quickly flip over tokens. There's actually one just out of sight down here. That is objective 3, this is objective 5, this is objective 4, this is objective 2, so that means objective 1 is up there. Already done the roll off with the Farstriders getting an automatic crit included because they finished setting up first, and they are getting to pick whether they go first or second. So Sanson Farstrider himself got the game started as the first activation for the Farstriders in round 1 of 3. He did a charge, moving himself up to 3 there, and then he used his range 3 dice looking for swords attack. Whiffed entirely, still rolled out the defense roll just to show you for the sharpening of the blade. He has 2 dice and he needs dodge, but he got 2 crits anyway, so he was almost guaranteed to be safe there from the storm. What is it called? It is called the Bolt Storm Pistol, not Stormbolt. That's something else, that's a different universe. In the powers phase though, after that activation, Raptor Strike was played by the Farstriders. Choose an enemy fighter within 4 hexes of your enemy friendly leader, deal 1 damage to the chosen fighter. The bird is coming off of his hand and going for the eyes, boo. So the sharpener of the blade still takes 1 damage, leaving him on 1 health remaining. Well, fearing that he's going to get a bolt to the head from someone else and just get annihilated in the first round, Sharpener of the Blade activated, did a charge to go after Farstrider himself, rolling just 2 dice needing swords with his basic attack, which is to use his rusted sword, I think. It's a sharpened blade. And he didn't get the swords, but he did get a crit. Now, Farstrider rolled his defense die. He did get a block, which would normally be a success, but it doesn't work here because a crit trumps it. So he does actually take 1 whole damage. The Sharpener of the Blade can use an action to either give himself +1 attack die or give +1, or it's +1 damage, I think, actually, not damage. +1 damage to either himself or an adjacent wield of the blade, but it's an action, so he can't do that and something else in the same activation. So instead he did that, and that was mostly just because at the end there, in the power phase, he is playing Condemned Step Forwards. Choose 2 fighters that are adjacent to each other. One or more of those is an enemy fighter. You swap places with them, is the gist of the text, and whoever the enemy fighter was gets a condemned token. So, the Sharpener and Farstrider swap places, and Farstrider gets a condemned token, which might matter if he gets killed, or just for objective cards in general. You don't get any kind of specific tokens for that, you just kind of have to use generic ones that come with the game. So, we'll not keep anything on the board to avoid clutter, but that's the first condemned token given out. Elias Swiftblade was the second activation in the first round for the Farstriders, also doing a charge, moving into base to base with the Sharpener of the Blade and attacking with their Storm Saber. 3 dice needing swords, got 1 set of swords. It's also worth mentioning though, because this didn't come up in the other test game, Farstrider is adjacent to the enemy being attacked, meaning that single supports would also count as successes. Not the one she rolled, because that would need 2, but just pointing it out. Either way, I was looking for dodges, and the Sharpener of the Blade did not dodge. He takes 2 damage. 1 would have been enough. So he is out of there. Now he can come back. The Headsmen's Curse have a mechanic where if the wielder of the blade successfully kills someone, he can bring back one of his followers to the battlefield. So even though he's weak and he's gone, he might come back. And that is 1 glory for the Farstriders scored there. And I don't think there's anything else being played off the back of that, so we're just on to the next activation. Oh, there is actually, sorry, that glory is being spent to give Farsighted to Swiftblade for +1 range, so that makes their ranged attack 4, essentially. So up the other end of the table, the Scriptor of the Sentence activated, did a charge action just to get close enough in order to use their, what is it called, Furious Indictment on Eagle Eye, Ulmerich Eagle Eye. 2 dice needing hammers, got a hammer and a crit, so damage was going through. It's only 1 damage, but it also guarantees placing a condemned token on the person hit via the condemned keyword, which is explained on his card, meaning that they can score quick to judge, giving them 1 glory. Score immediately after an activation step if there is a surviving friendly leader, yes there is, and 2 or more enemy fighters have a condemned token. Eagle Eye has 1 and Farstrider himself has 1. So that has scored, and then the glory is being spent on Cackling Nightmare. Is an upgrade card, and it can only be put on the Scriptor. It just means if he does his ranged attack, he can do another one. So essentially getting 2 attacks a turn, which makes him quite dangerous for handing out those condemned tokens. We're sticking up there because Ulmerich Eagle Eye activated. He charged to the square you can see before him and used his shock axe on the Scriptor of the Sentence. Needing hammers, he got a hammer, 1 dodge required to avoid that from the Scriptor, but he didn't get it. So that is 2 damage dealt to him of his 3 health he has. So he is very close to death now. The Bearer of the Block initiated a charge action when he activated for the Headsmen's Curse, going after Ulmerich Eagle Eye. He uses his Beheader's Block. Range 1, 2 dice needing hammers for 2 damage. You got 1 hammer, but it was successfully blocked. Now he gives anyone he's supporting cleave, which I think ignores those blocks. It ignores block or dodge, but it's only if he's supporting. It doesn't give it to his normal attacks. So that was a whiff. However, after his activation step ended, he did actually score, gather a crowd. Score this immediately after an activation step if 3 or more friendly fighters are within 2 of the same enemy fighter. 1, 2, 3, all within 2 of Eagle Eye. So that scores for 1 glory, putting them 1 ahead of the Farstriders. and it's immediately being spent to give the wielder of the blade the job satisfaction upgrade. It's a reaction. After an activation step in which this fighter made one or more attack actions, give him a guard token which just lets him count blocks and dodges as successes regardless of what he was looking for. So with all the Farstriders having already charged this turn, they all have charge tokens, which means one of them is allowed to activate. Normally that wouldn't be the case if you had more than 3 fighters on the table. So Ulmric Eagle Eye activate again in an attempt to kill the scriptor of the sentence. Attacked him, needing needing hammers rather, to land a hit with his hand axe, and managed to roll 2 single supports, which didn't do anything. Now the scriptor actually had support because the bearer of the block is there, but again the attack roll whiffed, so it doesn't really matter. So now it's over to the last action, or activation rather, for the Headsmen's Curse in the first round. So the wielder of the blade was the last one to activate and did a charge action going after Eagle Eye in an attempt to take him out. Now his executioner's blade, called Blade Bound, oh no sorry, that's the keyword, it is called Terminus. The sword is called Terminus. Range 1, 2 dice, needing hammers for a massive 3 damage. Now, he didn't roll hammers, but he actually has 2 supports, so the single support symbol and the double support symbol, both count as successes. So he got 1 success, but any kind of block or crit would have stopped that going through. However, Eagle Eye did not do any of that. He got what would have been a double support, which obviously doesn't apply. So, plus he would have had cleave, I think, anyway. Oh, wait, no, he needs to be... Yeah, he's supported by the bearer of the block, so it would have had cleave. So he was screwed a couple of different ways. 3 damage. He had 1 damage on him already, so he is out of there. Now that does a few different things. He had a condemn token, which means that condemn token now gets given to the Headsmen's Curse, which they want because it scores some cards, or can score cards. They get a glory for getting a kill, and also the Blade Bound reaction kicks in. After this attack action takes the target out of action, place a friendly fighter that is out of action in a hex adjacent to this fighter. Then give them a raise counter and 1 wound counter. So the Sharpener of the Blade is back in Pog form. I'm going to put him up there. He's missing 1 wound, which means he's on 1 wound. And he has a raise token, which I think is relevant for some objective cards. So at the end of the first round, there's no additional power cards being played, no gambits, no ploys, and no other cards being scored in the end phase. So as we go into the second round, the Headsmen's Curse have 3 glory, 2 for 2 objective cards being scored, 1 for getting a kill, and the Farstriders have 1 glory for just getting a kill. They're going to discard their objective cards, or 2 of them at least, I think, because they're not going to work out great with the situation they are in. And with that, we'll move on to the second round. So the Headsmen's Curse got to activate first in the second of 3 rounds, and the Scriptor of the Sentence activated, doing a charge action to move to the tile you can see him in, and from there he did his range 3 attack, but because of that Cackling Nightmare upgrade he could do another one after completing it. So he targeted Swiftblade, but then could do another one on Farstrider. The rolls for both are there. He needed a single hammer to land the hit and got a crit against Swiftblade, so the attack went through for 1 damage because it was not dodged. Farstrider got 1 defense dice needing a block, didn't get anything. It needed a hammer, sorry, did I say that? The attack needed a hammer to go through, and that is 1 that got through there, so he also took another damage. Now that gives out condemn tokens. If a target already has a condemn token, which Farstrider does, it's ignored, but Swiftblade didn't have one, so now they do as well. And with the unspent glory, they had 1 unspent glory point at the end of the last turn. It is being spent at this point to give ethereal immunity to the Scriptor of the Sentence. For his defense rolls, double supports are always successes, regardless of whether or not he's supported. Farstrider was the first to activate for his Farstriders in the second round, doing a charge up to the hex up here, where he launched a range 3 attack into the Sharpener of the Blade just to try and take him out again. He was looking for swords, he got 2 swords, 1 hammer, and the Sharpener needed dodges to dodge, and he didn't, so 2 damage I think goes through for that. Oh no, 1. Either way, he had 1 health. So the Sharpener of the Blade is once again deceased. Now, he had a raise counter because he got brought back from the dead. There is no indication in the 2-player starter box rulebook what a raise counter actually means in terms of any other rule conflicts. Like, does it mean they're not worth a glory anymore? No idea. So for now we're counting it. He got a kill again, so that is 1 glory for a kill. He was actually fishing for a crit kill, which would have scored a card, but he didn't get it. The Bearer of the Block was the second to activate for the Headsmen's Curse, doing a charge action to come after Swiftblade to try and finish her off. Attacked with the block itself, needing hammers, got 1 set of hammers. It was not blocked, so it dealt 2 damage. Swiftblade is alive on 1 health remaining, and Retribution is being played by the Farstriders here, which I think we saw last time as well. Reaction: play this after an enemy fighter's attack action that dealt damage to a friendly fighter. That friendly fighter makes an attack action that targets the person who attacked them. So we'll roll this in, back in a second. Well, Swiftblade gave as good as they got, striking back with that sabre there against the Bearer of the Block. Needed swords, I think it was, but got a crit either way. Yeah, it was swords. So it got through, because even though that is a success, it is not able to beat a crit. He would have needed to get a crit. So it did 2 damage to the Bearer of the Block, who has 4 health in total. So, oops. So he has, I can flip that over, there we go. He has 2 health remaining. Well, Swiftblade activated and did a charge, a reverse charge because he ran away down here, and at range 4 he initiated an attack on the Bearer of the Block. He can do it at range 4 because of that upgrade, the Farsight upgrade bought for him earlier. Needing swords, only got 1. A block got rolled, but the Bearer of the Block actually needed a dodge, so it did get through for 1 damage, which is not enough to kill him, but does put him 1 away from death. At that point, when he ended his activation, he scored Stormforged Vanguard, right here, which is hopefully coming into focus any second now. Score this immediately after an activation step if each surviving friendly fighter has 1 or more move or charge tokens and they're in enemy territory. Both of those things are true, so 1 glory for that. 1 glory is also being spent to give Farstrider the Swift Stride upgrade, because it feels like it's just meant to be. So he has +2 moves, so Farstrider's movement is now 6. Oh, before we move on to the next Headsmen's Curse activation, they actually were playing a power card at the end of that activation just finished for the Farstriders. It's called You Must Serve. There we go. Would have happened before the scoring, but it doesn't change anything that happened there. So place a friendly chain rasp that's out of action on a starting hex in your territory. Give it a raise counter. Then if there are 4 or more surviving friendly fighters, give that fighter wound counters until they are vulnerable. Vulnerable means they're 1 hit away from death. Now raise might also mean that if you've had a raise counter you can't have another. Again, it's not defined in the 2-player starter set rulebook, so just going as is for now. If that's wrong, obviously it'll be corrected in the future. But the Sharpening of the Blade, for now at least, is coming back. He has 1 hit remaining and is going to pop up on that starter tile there. It doesn't say he needs to be given a charge token or anything like that, so he can feasibly activate, just to put a little bit of pressure on. If that wasn't what it was supposed to be done, obviously the Bearer of the Block or the Scriptor could have come back as well, because neither of them have a raise counter, if indeed that's some kind of criteria that you have to go by. Well, taking advantage of that respawn there, the Wielder of the Blade activated and charged backwards to attack Farstrider in close combat. 2 dice needing hammers. He got a hammer and a single support, which does apply because the Sharpener of the Blade is supporting him against Farstrider, so it's actually 2 successes. So although Farstrider did get what he needed on the block die, it only overrides 1 of them, so damage still goes through, and 3 damage is 1 extra than what was required to take him out, because he had 2 health left. So he is out of there. The leader is deceased, at which point the secondary possible way to score Bound in Servitude is triggered. A friendly fighter's attack action takes an enemy fighter out of action, and 1 or more friendly chain rasps supported the attack action. Everyone except the Wielder of the Blade has the chain rasp keyword. So that's 2 more glory there for a kill, and then also for that card. And there's a single Stormcast left on the field. Well, there wasn't much for Swiftblade down there to do. Did a ranged attack into the Bearer of the Block again. Killed him with the crit, because that didn't even roll a dodge anyway, so damage was going through regardless. So the Bearer of the Block dies. Oh, I forgot to mention, but with Farstrider dying, that was the second condemned token handed over to the Headsmen's Curse. That does also mean, because he killed him with a crit, or rather just because he landed the crit, Veteran Marksman has scored for 1 glory, and that means 2 in total for just getting a kill in general. Score was immediately after a friendly fighter's range 3+ attack action that resulted in a crit. So They got on the board there for an additional 2 glory, and was that being spent on... That was being spent on the overcharged Boltstorm pistol. It's essentially exactly the same stat line, the only difference is it wants hammers instead of swords, which are slightly more common on the die you're rolling. Last activation of the second round for the Headsmen's Curse has to be the Sharpener of the Blade, because he doesn't have any charge tokens or anything like that. He's just going to use his Whet the Blade skill to give +1 damage to the next attack that the wielder of the blade does. 1 glory is also being spent to give the Sharpener of the Blade the Lurking Crony upgrade, which just means he counts as supporting a friendly he's adjacent to, regardless of whether or not he's adjacent to the enemy. So it's just a little bit of an extra boost if he follows around the wielder of the blade. They only need to do 1 damage to Swiftblade, and it's a tabling. But we'll see what happens, because the round is about to end after Swiftblade does something. If they can do anything, that is. Yeah, the only thing Swiftblade could do, thanks to that range increase, is to attack the wielder of the blade, because he is within 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Using the overcharged Boltstorm pistol, so it was looking for hammers, so it did have 1 success regardless, but crit roll in the defense roll means no damage done, and that takes us to the end of the second round. Well, it's not looking too good for the Farstriders, with only 1 of them left on the table and 1 health remaining, but we'll see how much of the third round we get to see. Not sure how this game treats tablings in terms of, like, do you just cut off there? Is it an automatic win, or do you still add up the points? Usually we count a tabling as a loss, just regardless of what the game says, but we will also tally points just to see it through. Speaking of which, there is an end phase objective card being scored by the Headsmen's Curse. It's called Basket of Bonces. Score this in the end phase if 2 or more enemy fighters are out of action. There's exactly 2, so that has scored for 1 more glory, which takes them to 2, 4, that takes them to 6. The Farstriders have 5, so they're not exactly far behind, but again, they might be about to be removed from existence. Well, the final round got started with the Farstriders winning priority. Swiftblade activated and did a charge to the tower you can see, then initiated a ranged attack onto the scripter of the sentence. Needing hammers thanks to that upgrade, got 1, but it was successfully dodged, which causes all sorts of problems for him. Then we went to the power step. 1 glory is being spent to give him the Lone Warrior upgrade, which is very fitting. Rolls of 1 support are successes for his defense rolls, so it gives him that bit more of a chance of actually surviving any kind of attack this turn. Although 1 glory is also being spent by the Headsmen's Curse at this point to get Enduring Executor, almost said the Pokemon name, onto the scripter of the sentence, which gives him +1 wound, so he's no longer 1 away from death, he is 2 away from death, making it all the more harder to kill him because ranged attacks from the Farstriders only do 1 damage. Oh, Swiftblade held on by the skin of his teeth. The bearer of the blade activated, charged into him to try and kill him, get him +1 damage, not that it matters, because his base damage is more than enough that it would kill Swiftblade. But only 1 success on that hammer. Crit rolled for the defense roll, meaning Swiftblade deftly dodges Terminus, which is the sword, and takes no damage. Oh, at the end of the wielder's turn, the Farstriders are putting into play Lightning Blow, meaning that when Swiftblade now activates, they're doing +1 damage on the next attack action they do. Well, we're sticking down here because Swiftblade can't move, he can only attack, so he cracked out his range 1 Storm Saber, 3 dice, needing swords. He got swords and a crit against the wielder of the blade, who did roll a crit, but that's it, so the crits cancel each other out. He still has that 1 success, so I think that means the attack goes through. Normally only 2 damage, but because of that lightning blow, does 3 in total of the 5 health the wielder of the blade has. Then, Merciless Assault is being played as a reaction, so after he does a successful range 1 attack, he can do a range 3 attack action, so he's shooting a crossbow bolt into the scripter just to see what happens. Oh, and because of the ethereal immunity upgrade to the scripter, that double support roll means it counts as a success and blocks the 1 successful hammer. Again, he needs hammers because of the upgrade he has, but either way, it was blocked. Well, the scripter of the sentence activated, didn't move because he doesn't need to, he's got range 3 on his basic attack to condemn Swiftblade. Rolled, didn't bother rolling the defense that time because it whiffed. Did put into play though, just in case, which is apt I guess. Choose 1 friendly fighter and push them 1 hex towards the nearest enemy fighter with 1 or more wounds and or condemned counters. So the Sharpener of the Blade got pushed 1 more towards the action. Oh, and it is whiffs on both sides as Swiftblade activated, tried to finish off the wielder of the blade, and rolled a needing 2 support success. 2 hammers, was looking for swords. With ironically, if he'd done his ranged attack, it would have went through, but wouldn't have been enough to kill him though. So he's just done. The embarrassing whiffs continue as the Sharpener of the Blade initiates a charge to get base to base with Swiftblade. Range 1, 2 dice needing swords for a single point of damage. And, oh, actually, no, sorry, he did get 1 success because he has support. The Wielder of the Blade is supporting him. So, in that case, it is 1 block die from Swiftblade. Oh, that's a success. So, still no damage. Well, last activation for the game for the Farstriders, and of course it's Swiftblade because he's the last one on the table. He cracked out that long range attack, even though he's at range 1, I think he can still use it, it's just up to range 3. So he used his Boltstorm pistol, fired it into the head of the Sharpener of the Blade, got a crit, which means 1 damage got through. He had 1 health, so he is out of there for 1 glory, and also another glory for the Judgment of Sigmar, which we saw last time. Score this immediately after a friendly fighter's range 3 plus attack action that takes a target out of action. So that put them in front, but the Headsmen's Curse still have 1 activation left. So the way the game is going to go comes down to this 1 roll that's about to happen. The Wielder of the Blade, can't activate, he's got a charge token. The Scriptor of a Sentence has to be the one to activate because they just attacked, so they have no move counters or anything. So they're just going to do another attack into Swiftblade, who defense roll for Swiftblade has already been rolled and it's a success. So the way it works is if the attack from the Scriptor of a Sentence, which is 2 dice needing hammers, if it kills him, the Headsmen's Curse will win just on the glory they get from that kill, but it will also get 1 more for a card they can play. If the Wielder of the Blade had been the one to do the deed, it would have been an additional 1 on top of that because a couple of cards would have scored. If this doesn't happen, it's going to be a draw because there's nothing in the end phase that will score for either side. So it just comes down to this 1 roll as to whether or not this is a draw or not. So let's see. Well, that is a crit. So crits trumps the defense. So that means 1 hit does go through and Swiftblade does die. That also means they get the condemned token that was on Swiftblade. So that's 1 glory for the kill, 1 glory for heads will roll. Score this immediately after you gain your 3rd or subsequent condemned counter. They just did. So that's another 1 for that. And if it had been the Wielder of the Blade who did the deed, off with their heads would have scored. So very fun card. But he didn't do the deed. So that's still going to be it though. So with 2 of the number left standing, the Headsmen's Curse are taking it today with 2, 4, 6, 8 glory in total to the 6 the Farstriders had. Now if Swiftblade had actually parked himself, if he'd parked himself on this objective and that all played out exactly as you saw, it wouldn't have changed anything necessarily except maybe an assist. He would have scored a prime objective achievement or objective card for 1 more victory point, but that would still only put them at 7 to the 8. So they still would have lost, but that was, didn't realise that was the most valuable objective token in the Headsmen's Curse side of the table. So they missed out on 1 point they could have got there and still had everything happen as it did. So that was just a bit of misplanning there, but it wouldn't have made a difference in the long run. The Headsmen's Curse, I feel like they do best against a warband that has a bunch of lower wound count people, so they can get lots of kills, because they only got the 3 condemned markers right literally at the end of the game there. When that happened, they all would have inspired. That's their inspire criteria. When you get a 3rd condemned token, they would all flip their cards. So against a warband with lots of little people that's easy to kill, even if they come back, that's where they'd excel. I feel like it's a bit harder if they go against a smaller warband. But in this case, the dice were on their side because they just kept rolling crits. For the poor Farstriders, got a little bit of a beating there. But that's going to do it for our second look at Warhammer Underworlds. Again, apologies for anything that was done incorrectly. The game is new to the channel, so expect things not to be perfect, especially because we're just going by the rulebook that comes in the 2-player starter set. There is missions that are part of the other older expansions for the game, Weird Hollow and don't remember the name of the other one offhand. Gnarlwood, I think that may be it. So there might be some stuff that isn't included. I know the rulebook has been updated with some of the terms and classifications and rules added in those expansions, But clearly not all of them, because it doesn't say anywhere what a raise counter does. There's nothing to do with magic in the 2-player star set either, so you can't really use any warband that uses magic, because it doesn't even come with the magic dice. So those are things to consider as well going forward. But either way, I sincerely hope you enjoyed watching. If you want to see more Warhammer Underworlds on the channel, please do remember to show your support so we know what to focus our efforts on here on the channel. And if you want to support us financially to help keep this possible a little while longer, consider becoming a channel member or pressing the thanks button. It helps out, it's all reinvested in the channel, and I greatly appreciate it. Thank you for watching either way though. Enjoy the rest of your day. See you in the future for something else. It's time for now.